Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. So, in the past week or so, the market has really started to soar again. So, a lot of where we kind of bottomed out in the month of August, we're starting to see September not only bucking the trend of typically being one of the lowest months of the year, typically always a bad month for market performance. Not only are we seeing it buck the trend, but we're possibly seeing it allow the market to set new records, which is very rare for the month of September. But nonetheless, let's go into a discussion about MSTY and ULTY, two of our favorite ETFs, and let's analyze whether or not the market surging within the last week or so may lead to a massive recovery for both of these funds. Now, there was one piece of bad news Friday, and that was the fact that the underlying company for MSTY, MSTR, unfortunately didn't make it to S&P listing. So that was a big drawback, not only for MSTY, but also MSTU as well. Pay the Piper says, I thought you were on a month-long vacation. No, only weekend long. Lots been going on. My former college team is starting to win again, so that's taken up a lot of my weekends recently. Been a long time, but it also caused me to not upload too much. One of the contributing factors. Um, and I'm also busy working too. I wear a lot of hats. So anyway, let's get into the discussion on MSTY, and then we will, yeah, well, we'll get into that too. So counting premium cash, a lot of funds that I'm in have come back, which is great because um, absolutely, yeah, Miami, that's where I'll be. Um, down there, down in that area. But yeah, the premium is going great. A lot of my trades are not only coming back, but several of my trades are in the black now. So, like I say, SMCX, NVDY actually closed out NVDY again. I saw someone was making fun of me online for a $90 strike price, but it turned out to be great because I was able to close for a really nice gain. Which in the Discord I show all of those, so feel free to join. Yeah, massive, absolutely. There's in the money puts and even out of the money. It's been a great week. But anyway, that's not the topic of the video. The topic of the video, it's not how to make thousands of dollars on options premium. It's how to get our 10-cent ulti dividend. So, Piper, I need you to help me stay focused because you're over here talking about making thousands of dollars in premium, but I'm trying to talk about making our 10-cent ulti dividend. So, don't distract me, okay? All right, now let's go into what we were going to talk about, MSTY. And yeah, I know, ulti no go up. Well, you think that's a trend or what? No comment on that. Okay, so on Seeking Alpha here, you'll see I was looking at NVIDIA stock, which was going up but dropped towards the end of the day. But you'll notice it started to recover nicely since the earnings debacle. Well, I won't call it an earnings debacle, but it kind of inexplicably dropped. It got oversold. So you'll see here, going into earnings, we were at like 181, which I made money on the puts for that once it dropped. And then I closed the calls before then. So all in all, it turned out to be really good timing. But you'll notice we dropped down to 165. Since then, in a week, actually in less than a week, we've surged up to 178. We were almost flirting with 180. But anyway, again, that's not the point of this video. So let's look at MSTR first. So the driver of MSTY is the underlying MSTR primarily. If MSTR no go up, guess what? MSTY definitely no go up, to put it plainly. All right, so in a month, we've gone from 407 down to 326. That's about an $81 and change loss. Hidden under the covers here, though, is where we bottomed out. Well, we bottomed out, actually 326 is around the bottom. 320, actually, September 4th. So we've come back about $6. So one of my trades in the option strategy is MSTU. Those are going to absolutely get assigned, and I'm fine with that because basically, with all the premium I've taken in, I'm basically buying those at cost. And MSTR is a company that I know is going to recover one day. So if I hold the bag on those for some time, they're not that expensive. They're not a huge chunk of the portfolio, and I'm covering with my other gains anyway. So with that being said, so MSTR must go up for MSTY to go up. So let's look at where MSTY is, because there's been a lot of hate about yield max out there lately. But you know, if you're in these, you want to see these recover. Obviously, I still hold shares in this fund. So we'll see a year it's down 27%, year to date it's down 42%, but that's just the pesky price return. That has nothing to do with dividends or anything like that. So, we try not to focus on those, those minor details, like, what the price does and stuff like that. Those are just ancillary details, right? So in the last month, again, down 22%, but that's just price return. We just kind of basically skim over that. So we really focus on total return, because that's the holy grail of investing. So total return, you see we're up a whopping 96% in the year, outperforming the S&P. Let's pull up the underlying too. So the underlying, you'll notice that's higher than its dividend counterpart. But again, a lot of you don't care about that, so we'll ignore that for the time being. But I just, for the ones that do care, I just like to point that out. It's about a 60% difference, which on a compounding basis makes a pretty big difference. In terms of year to date, it's now underperforming the S&P, but it's about, look at this one, it's about just in line with the underlying. So how about that? That's a pretty good job, I would say, by the fund management, because it's pretty much, you'll notice within the last 6 months, it's keeping up with the underlying, basically. And then over the last month, it's actually outperforming the underlying, because you see the underlying's down 18.5, it's only down 15.2. So that's that. So in the short term, we've got an outperform, but in the long term, it's significantly, in terms of price, it's significantly down. So what we need to focus on as well is that back in November, we were at $44 a share. So those of you that bought in towards the end of the year or bought on the way up, you're significantly down. But at this point, you could be buying at the bottom. I'm not telling anybody to buy. I would never tell anybody to buy these funds, but I'm merely pointing out that it happens to be at a 52-week low. So me personally, I would buy the underlying. And if I was to buy any more of this, it would just be to dollar cost average and get my cost basis lower. So, and from May, we've dropped $10. So that's really the pathway to recovery here, is for the market to keep going, and for the underlying, of course, to recover. So in the last 5 days, you see we're up 2%. So that's starting to happen, at least. If we go back to MSTR, in the last 5 days, it's about the same. So they're actually tracking very close with each other, which is very interesting. Now, if we cover ULTY, of course, there's no underlying to look at with ULTY. So it's just ULTY itself. So ULTY was up 0.23% today. Again, since it went to weekly, you'll see a real stabilization here. So we're still higher than we were April 21st. So basically, what's that? May, June, July, August, September. 5 months, basically, or 4.5 months. We're flat. We're essentially flat, and it's still paying out a consistent dividend every month. Well, see, it dropped to 9 cents. So that's actually, believe it or not, that's a 10% drop in the dividend. However you want to spin it, 10% drop is significant, I would say. We'll see. It did come back. So it was 10 cents for, what do we have? We had about a 6-week streak there. And then it dropped to 9.5, then a flat 9 cents, and then 9.28. So it came back. But for us to sustain that, the fund price needs to stay at the same. And as I've done a comprehensive analysis of the underlying before, I've pointed out in that analysis, that basically the underlying funds that ULTY is invested in, some of them are soaring. So not only should we be looking at NAV stabilization, but we should have a lot of appreciation, I would think. But that's just me being critical. But so technology, so it's very tech heavy. That's like half of the holdings now. It's rebalanced. It's got a lot of tech, financials, and some industrials, communication, and utilities. We've still got IonQ, Rocket Lab, which these have been hit by the market downturn, but these are all going to come back. So I actually think, based on the underlyings here, I think ULTY is going to come back. For MSTY, I neglected to look at the dividend. So let's go over that real quick, because I know that's really all we care about with these funds is the dividend. So, we almost need to cross out that price, um, or in our mind, just kind of do this, when we show in our mind's eye, just kind of do this when we show the price. But yeah, so the dividend, we're going to be getting the September one in a couple of weeks, but we can see it's been steadily dropping since it hit 147, down to 124, then 118, then 109. So the dividend is going in the wrong direction, but we're going to need a big recovery to get a big dividend. So that, folks, is my 10-minute assessment of MSTY and ULTY and where they are at the moment. If you like that, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and join the Discord. And even if you didn't like that, do both. Smash that like button for those of you that are on live. If you all do that real quick, I'll show some bonus content. I'll show my positions in TSLL, how I've done throughout the year, because I posted this in Discord. So Piper, if you're still on, you'll like to see this one. Cord here. Let's go over here. So this is basically on the screen here. These, awesome, him here, huh? What about her here? All right, so these over the last month are my what I've closed out in TSLL, because I've had some of my own fans that have questioned me on this strategy. But what happens, because TSLL stays in such a tight range, basically between $11 and $15 a share, I'm selling covered calls on the $15 strike price. And to be honest, to be blunt, I don't give a shit if these get called away at 15, because at $15, I'm at a 40% gain. And I'm totally fine with that based on the number of shares I own. I own enough shares to get 50 contracts on these. So each time I keep, opening and closing basically for anywhere from a $1,000 to $2,000 gain. Some of the lots are differently. Some of the lots are different here because we've got, the way they close. Some of the, you'll see 42 and 8 and 5, but basically it should add up to 40 at a time. So there's about probably 3 trades in total here. Welcome, Pirate Justin. Unfortunately, you just are late to the party because we're about to end the video, but I'm just showing my TSLL trades here. Also in my Discord, which you all are more than welcome to join. And that's going to conclude today's video. So please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and join Discord and talk in the Discord too. Thank you all. Take care. Have a great day. Bye.